You have done everything right, and still something feels off. You have the perfect job, the family, the stability, the house, the reputation, the finances are all well. On paper, you're living the dream, but inside, there's this constant hum of stress. Like you feel guilty when you're about to rest, or you second guess every decision, or you feel like you're performing a life that was never really yours. And the hardest part, you don't even know how this happened. Hi, I'm Vassia. I'm a psychologist, the founder of Anti-Loneliness, and I help high achievers like you break free from burnout, perfectionism, and the emotional weight of always needing to proving themselves. On this channel, we talk about why we're tired even though we're productive, why rest feels guilty, and why your inner critic sounds like perfectionism sometimes, or maybe like your parents' voice. Today, we're diving into something different, more subtle, but really powerful. And it's called family enmeshment, and how it feeds perfectionism, guilt, and the feeling that you owe your success to somebody else's script. But what is enmeshment? Let's talk about this first. Enmeshment is a pattern of emotional overcloseness, and it usually shows up in families. You can also see it in romantic relationships, but usually it stems from family relationships. It's not dramatic, it's really subtle. No one in your family would say to you, well, you have to live your life by my rules. Nobody says it. They don't have to. Because every time you do something they agree with, it's their values, they appreciate, they recognize, you are praised, you are celebrated, you are validated. And every time you don't do what they approve of or what their values are, there's silence, maybe disappointment, or even disapproval. So you start anticipating what they want, and then you're calling it love. You're calling it being a good daughter, a good child, calling it success. So this is how we actually get our values. In the beginning, we get it from the values of our family. What they find as important, we find as important. What they appreciate, we appreciate. But at some point in our life, we detach from that set of values and we create our own set of values, what we think is important, what fulfill us. But in enmeshed families, this is not happening. This is where fear creates this pattern. It's fear of not belonging if you choose differently. If I don't abide by these rules, by these values, then I will not be accepted, then I will not belong in this system. And I'm going to make it really practical, like how enmeshment shows up in adulthood, in real life, because in plain sight, it might hide. So, for example, as we said before, you live a life exactly like your parents. Same values, same routines, same choices. You relate to your partner the same way they relate to each other, even though you know deep inside that they weren't happy. You know that. And still you live your life according to the same way they live their life. Another example, you married someone you knew they would approve of. It's what they consider as a successful marriage, and you tick the box. So it is someone who they would approve of, but not somebody who lights you up. Another example, you feel the need to prove that you're a good mother or a good father, just like they wanted you to be. So it's not like the being a good father or a good mother. You need to prove to them that you are a good father or a good mother. And then that comes the next example. You spend all your holidays with them because that's the place where you're going to show them that you're a good mother or a good father. Even though your dream is to explore other places. Still, every holidays, here you are with them, mingling with the family of your origin and trying to prove that you're doing a good job as their child. Another example that is a very common one. You call them daily, and maybe not daily, but we're talking about at least 3 times a week. And it's not just the calling; it's about the fact that in these calls You talk about everything in your life. They know everything, what you ate, who you talk to, what you're wearing, why you chose that outfit, why you could have chosen another one. They have a say in everything because of this constant exposure to each other's lives. Another example, you're afraid to change jobs. You're afraid to travel the world. You're afraid to take a sabbatical because you're thinking, what will they say? Will they say that I'm lazy? Will they say that I quit? What will they say? Another example, you hold back your truth, your opinions, your dreams, your needs, because maybe it will disrupt their harmony. This is not what we discuss in this family. This is not according to our values. So then you keep it inside you. And last but not least, you live with this low level stress, this tightness inside you. That voice that says, don't disappoint them, or actually make them proud. But that's not freedom. That's what we call perfectionism in disguise. Perfectionism means creating this facade, creating this world, not your true world, not your true self, in order to prove that you are successful according to their values. In schema therapy, I've talked about schema therapy before. It is my main therapeutic approach. In schema therapy, this is a mix of different schemas, different patterns, as we say in schema therapy. One of them is the subjugation, which means that you put other people's needs first, above yours, in order to avoid guilt or punishment. Another schema, another pattern is the pattern of unrelenting standards. You have this standard that you have to be successful to their own eyes, and you strive to be perfect because that's what perfection means, successful to their eyes. You strive to be the perfect child, the perfect partner, the perfect parent. And also, there's another pattern, a schema, as we call the schema of emotional deprivation. This is where you learned not to expect your emotional needs to be met. So you keep chasing approval instead. All your emotional needs, the need for protection, acceptance, connection, validation, playfulness, autonomy, independence, all these needs, they are just being suppressed, deprived, because what comes first is the need for approval. And this is what you're chasing after all your life. Another important concept here is the concept of inner critic. We talk about the inner critic in many videos. This inner critic is the voice in our head that tells us what we should do or shouldn't do. Oftentimes, this is not your voice, it's their voice, but you have internalized it after decades of being exposed to their truth, to their beliefs. It's their voice. You have internalized it, you have rehearsed it, you have repeated so many times. Also, another reason why this pattern of enmeshment is so strong is because your nervous system links autonomy with rejection. Every time you try to make your own decision, you try to check in with your own values and live your life according to your values, there's a fear. Your body feels stiff already because that means rejection. So setting boundaries, even small ones, triggers a stress response. And of course, if you are not supported, if you were not given the space to become your own person, maybe it feels really weird to do that now. It feels unfamiliar. Maybe you've never learned how to separate with love. You never learn who you really are, actually. And you think that this is who you really are. That's exactly me. That's of course, I don't doubt about that. But again, our signal here is that we still feel unsatisfied, that we still feel that something lingers. The $1 million question, how to start breaking free then? Because the opposite of perfectionism is self acceptance. You want to be your own self, you want to be your true self. The opposite of perfectionism is truth, authenticity. You want to be your authentic self. You want to live your life to your own standards without feeling scared that you're going to disappoint, that you're going to be rejected, yada, yada, yada. We always start cognitively. We start about thoughts and beliefs. First one, spot the borrowed beliefs. Do I really believe this? Is that really important for me? Do I agree with this? Who taught me that this was the right way? That's the question that you should be asking. For example, if you believe that success means stability in a 9 to 5 job, but you really crave creativity and freedom and independence and autonomy. Ask yourself, where did that definition come from? Check with yourself whether you're feeling scared every time you're thinking the 9 to 5 job, or the feeling of failure, even when you're thinking of changing jobs. And then ask, where did that definition of success and failure come from? That's the question. The second thing, we separate love from obedience. It's one thing to love your parents, it's another thing to obey your parents. Love doesn't have to mean an agreement or approval. You can still love your parents and live your own way. It doesn't mean agreeing with them 24/7, that this is the only way that you can love them. Show them your love in other ways. Care for them, protect them, support them, and at the same time, support your own needs and your own beliefs and your own dreams. Another thing that we need to do is, because we talk a little bit about separation and we're talking about emotional separation. Now, you're not going to leave your parents if the rest of the relationship with them is good. Allowed grief. When you realize that I don't need these values anymore, allow grief for the loss of this imagined closeness. You had this imagined closeness, or the fantasy that they would eventually approve of you, and allow yourself to grieve, because that's not going to happen anymore. You don't need that anymore. Maybe it is happening, but you don't need that anymore. You need your own self approval. In practice, that's a practical part here, tiny acts of autonomy, like not calling every day, not asking them what they would do, or asking for approval of what you're going to buy, where you're going to meet, which people you're seeing. Any small decision, even it feels very trivial, and you're like, come on, it's okay, I can ask them. Still, that's a tiny act of autonomy. Also, plan your holidays differently this year. Maybe you can go somewhere else. You have been spending all your holidays with them. Maybe they will be grumpy a little bit, but it's okay. Because again, we say that before, you show your love in a different way now. So you can book your holidays, the holidays you've been longing for a long time. Wear what you want. Don't ask for their opinion. See what you want. Don't ask for their opinion. Let them have their opinions, but not decisions over your own life. They can have an opposite opinion. They can have a different opinion. And I know you're going to feel guilty that you don't agree with that, but hold that guilt. Accept that guilt without acting on it. And last but not least, anchor into your own values. Do that as an exercise. Every day, write what you believe, what you like, what you find important, what gives you joy, what gives you fulfillment. What is your belief, not somebody else's? And remind yourself that you're allowed to choose again, right? So, feeling guilty is fine. You're not broken, so don't worry. You're breaking an important pattern here, not a healthy one. So, you're turning your life into more healthy patterns. You were simply trained to confuse obedience with worthiness. That's why you keep chasing every big or small decision that abides by their values. But your worth is not how much you please others. It's in your truth, it's in your voice, it's in your own freedom. So even if your family never fully understand your choices, you get to understand yourself. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to check out my free guide, How Much of a Perfectionist Are You? Because enmeshment often turns us into high performing, approval seeking perfectionism without us even realizing it. And you will find the link, of course, in the description. Now, if you want more videos like these that help you break free from burnout or perfectionism, don't forget to subscribe. We said that in the beginning. You're not selfish for choosing a life that feels good to you. That's the meaning of life, right? Thank you for watching. Until next time, take good care of yourself.